You never know who's watching. That's the quiet truth behind one of the most gripping moments at Rose's Grill, a cozy diner tucked in the heart of Leeds. When Marcus Bennett, the owner, walked in disguised in a faded hoodie and scuffed trainers, he wasn't looking for attention. He was looking for the soul of his restaurant. What he found instead was silence, where there used to be warmth, and two cashiers, Liam and Georgia, mocking both their customers and, unknowingly, the very man who signed their paychecks. Marcus didn't explode. He didn't confront them. He just canceled his sandwich order and left quietly, holding back more than frustration. For him, Rose's Grill wasn't just about food. It was legacy built on his Nan Rose's belief that food should feel like home. But that day, the place felt like a stranger. This moment hit viewers hard. One comment that resonated across the board read, "Always show respect. You never know who's paying attention." Others called it a beautiful gut punch, praising Marcus for his restraint and class. Viewers were struck not just by what was said behind the counter, but by what wasn't. Leadership, culture, care. It's a reminder that true leadership doesn't always shout. Sometimes it walks in quietly, listens deeply, and lets the silence say everything. Leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it's what you do when no one sees you. After quietly laving the front counter, Marcus Bennett, the hidden owner of Rose's Grill, didn't rush to fire anyone. Instead, he circled around the alley behind the restaurant. It wasn't strategy. It was instinct. There, through the cracked kitchen window, he heard something that cut even deeper than the mockery at the till. Liam and Georgia, still unaware of who had just walked out, were now joking about the ghost boss, who, in their words, never shows up, probably off drinking kombucha in Knightsbridge. But amidst the laughter, one voice stood out. Sam, the veteran grill cook Marcus had hired after a difficult stretch in his life. Calm but firm, Sam reminded them of what Rose's used to stand for. "This ain't just a job for some of us," he said. "Some of us remember when this place meant something." The room went quiet. Even the laughter stopped. That moment was a mirror. Marcus saw not just the decay in the team's respect, but also the seed of something worth saving. Sam's loyalty struck a chord, not because it was loud, but because it came from someone who had every reason to walk away long ago, but chose to stay. The YouTube audience didn't miss this. One commenter wrote, "This hit harder than a cast-iron skillet to the soul." Marcus didn't just walk into his diner. He walked straight into the truth and served accountability hotter than his brisket. Another viewer added, "True leadership is revealed in moments like this, when someone listens quietly, observes deeply, and then acts with integrity." The scene wasn't dramatic. It was reflective, and that's what made it powerful. Many echoed similar sentiments, that Marcus's strength wasn't in raising his voice, but in knowing when to stay silent and when to show up. One user captured it best. "Kindness and respect cost nothing, but the impact can be everything. You never know who's listening." What resonated deeply with viewers was the tension between leadership and absence. When a business loses its heart, it rarely happens overnight. It slips away quietly, in casual jokes, in unchecked cynicism, in the silence of a leader who stops showing up. For Marcus, it wasn't just about bad service or rude comments. It was about realizing that the culture he once built on compassion, inclusion, and second chances had become fragile, and that his absence had allowed the wrong voices to take over. But the scene with Sam gave him clarity. The problem wasn't everyone. Some still remembered what the grill stood for. Some still showed up with purpose, not just for a pay slip. And those were the people he would fight for. By the end of that day, Marcus knew what he had to do. Not just reprimand, but rebuild. Not just fire, but refocus. His next move wouldn't be a punishment. It would be a wake-up call, And for every viewer watching, especially those who've worked in places where kindness slowly faded, that quiet moment behind the kitchen window wasn't just a turning point in the story. It was a reminder that culture is fragile, and when you stop tending to it, it grows wild, not with weeds, but with indifference. Sometimes, all it takes to change a room is for the right person to walk in and say nothing. At 9:02 a.m. the next morning, Marcus Bennett stepped into Rose's grill, not in disguise this time, but in a charcoal blazer and steel-toed boots. The staff weren't ready. Not for him, not for what was coming. Cherise spotted him first, her eyes widening with a mix of respect and relief. Reggie, still in his apron, gave a subtle nod, but Liam and Georgia, they froze. The words from yesterday hung in the air like smoke, and they knew. He'd heard everything. The staff were gathered near the front booths, not sure whether to sit, stand, or disappear. Marcus let the silence breathe. Then he spoke, not with anger, but with weight. "This place," he said, scanning the room, "is named after my Nan, Ellie Mae Bennett. She believed food should taste like dignity." He talked about how he'd started the diner with nothing but a 200 grill and a dream, how he wanted to build more than a restaurant, a space where people could laugh, feel safe, rebuild. And then, without naming names, he told them about the sandwich order he'd canceled the day before, about the comments he heard, about how the place he built with heart now felt hollow. "I walked out yesterday," he said, "because I didn't recognize what I'd built. And that's on me. I stopped showing up. But that disrespect, that carelessness, that's on you." He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just stood in the middle of the room and told the truth. And the room listened. One viewer captured it perfectly. This wasn't a confrontation. It was a reckoning. Another wrote, "He didn't need a clipboard or a title, just presence. That's leadership." The silence in that diner was the kind that made people uncomfortable. Not out of fear, but recognition. Everyone knew who he was talking about. But more than that, they knew who he was fighting for. People like Cherise, like Reggie, like Isaiah, who still showed up with purpose. "If you don't want to be here," Marcus added, "don't clock in. This isn't just a job. It's a place that feeds more than stomachs." That line stuck with viewers. In the comments, many who had worked in toxic workplaces saw themselves in Marcus's frustration and his grace. One user wrote, "I've had bosses scream about less, but he walked in and restored order with dignity. That's power." Another added, "Sometimes the loudest voice in the room is the one that says, 'I see you, and I'm still here.'" Marcus didn't end the meeting with ultimatums. He ended it with options. Stay and recommit, or leave, with 2 weeks' pay and a handshake. No shame, just choice. And that's what resonated most. Not control, but clarity. Because culture isn't built with rules. It's built with reminders. And in that moment, Marcus reminded them all that a restaurant named after his Nan wasn't built for gossip, greed, or laziness. It was built for second chances, served with gravy. Real change doesn't happen when people are told what to do. It begins the moment they're given a choice. After his powerful staff meeting, Marcus Bennett left the room not with threats, but with 2 folders. One was for those who believed in Rose's grill and were ready to commit to its purpose. The other, for anyone who felt it was just a paycheck, offered a way out, no shame attached. No one was forced, but no one could hide either. By mid-morning, the first form was signed. Reggie, loyal to the bone, slid his choice across the counter. "I'm staying," he said. "This place saved me. Time to return the favor." It wasn't performative. It was Reggie being Reggie, a man who remembered what this diner used to be and still believed it could get there again. Soon after, Cherise followed. Then Tiana. One by one, the ones who carried heart before rules made their decisions. But it wasn't all loyalty and renewal. Georgia, whose biting sarcasm had pierced the room days earlier, asked to speak with Marcus privately around 4:15 p.m. "I think I need to go," she admitted. Her voice wasn't bitter, just honest. "I was chasing a paycheck. You need people who chase purpose." Marcus didn't argue. He respected her self-awareness more than empty promises. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "You left with more grace than I expected, and that matters." Viewers were struck by this moment of dignity. One comment read, "True growth isn't about staying at all costs. Sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when to walk away." Kendall came last, past closing time, past the point where excuses could cover his silence. He placed the form on the table. "I'm staying," he said, "and I'll earn it this time." Marcus looked him in the eye. "Then don't make me regret it. No lecture, no praise, just accountability." That decision hit viewers hard. In the comments, many resonated with the idea that redemption doesn't come from words. It's earned in quiet consistency. "Second chances aren't handed out," one viewer wrote. "They're invited and then watched." Another added, "He didn't crush Kendall. He challenged him. That's real leadership." By the end of the day, Rose's Grill had made space for reflection, for growth. The tip jar was full, the kitchen spotless, and customers lingered longer than they had in weeks, not because of a new menu or promotion, but because the atmosphere had shifted, and perhaps the most powerful shift of all, the staff, now moving with intent, not obligation, serving not because they had to, but because they wanted the place to be better than they found it. Marcus didn't need applause. He didn't want perfection. He wanted presence. And that's exactly what he started to get. A place can have 4 walls and a sign, but what gives it soul are the people who believe in it. 1 week after Marcus Bennett laid down his challenge, something quiet but remarkable began happening at Rose's Grill. It wasn't a dramatic makeover. There were no balloons, no grand reopening banners. But the changes were unmistakable. The old bell above the front door had that familiar ding again. Like it, too, had missed the sound of genuine laughter. Orders came out hotter, greetings landed warmer, and even the chipped tiles behind the counter felt like they belonged. The diner hadn't become perfect, but it had become true again. Marcus wasn't hiding anymore. He watched not like a hawk, but like a gardener, tending, not controlling. He took his seat at the usual booth near the window, arms folded, eyes scanning, but this time with a faint smile on his face. Charisse, ever the perfectionist, slid him a slice of peach cobbler, just like Ellie used to make. "Brown sugar crust, bit of cinnamon," she said. "I followed her recipe." Marcus took one bite and nodded. "That's the one." Customers noticed, too. One elderly man in a crisp suit left a note on a napkin. "Been coming here since you opened. Thought the feeling was gone. But today, it felt like Ellie again." That note hit home. Later that evening, as Marcus stood outside, he read it again under the soft flicker of the neon sign. One corner of the green and yellow glow had gone dim. But Marcus didn't call an electrician. He liked the imperfection. It reminded him the place still had room to grow, just like the people inside. One viewer wrote, "This story didn't end with applause. It ended with presence, with a man choosing to stay, water his roots, and trust his team again." Another added, "Marcus didn't fix the diner. He reminded it of what it was supposed to be." It wasn't just the staff who felt it. A first-time customer, a stiff business traveler in a tailored suit, walked in looking like he'd made a wrong turn, but Tiana greeted him with a warm grin and a cheeky nudge. "Try the catfish today. Trust me." By the time he left, he had a full belly, a takeaway box, and a new favorite spot on his map. As the day wound down, Isaiah, young, once unsure, returned to say thank you. "Got the job on Glenwood cleaning buses." He beamed. "First time in ages I've said I'm doing all right." Reggie gave him a fist bump. "That's what this place is for." the comments section flooded with praise. "This hit harder than a cast-iron skillet to the soul," one user wrote. Another, "He didn't rebuild with rules. He rebuilt with reminders, and that's the kind of leadership we need more of." But perhaps the most poignant reaction came from a longtime subscriber. "Real change doesn't arrive with fireworks. It shows up when people stop running, step back in and say, 'We're still watering, Grandma.'" That final line, whispered by Marcus as he turned to go back inside, became something of a mantra among viewers, commented, quoted, and pinned to the top. Because in the end, it wasn't about sandwiches or spreadsheets. It was about showing up for your people, your purpose, and yourself. And that, in the words of one commenter, isn't just leadership. That's legacy. Culture doesn't survive on intention. It survives on attention. That's the truth Marcus Bennett understood as he stood outside Rose's Grill, arms crossed beneath the soft flicker of its neon sign. One corner of the E was dim now, but for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel broken. It felt alive. Because after everything, the missteps, the silence, the mockery, something essential had returned. Not perfection, but purpose. Inside, the last of the staff were mopping up. The dishes were stacked, lights dimmed, and the air carried the comforting scent of peach cobbler and a place that meant something again. Earlier that evening, Charisse had stepped out with a folded note in her hand. "Customer left this," she said, handing it over with a knowing look. Marcus unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was shaky, the message simple. "Been coming here since y'all opened. Thought I lost the feeling when it changed, but today it felt like Ellie again." He read it twice, then slipped it into his back pocket, like something too sacred to leave behind. That line, and the one he whispered to himself moments later, "We're still watering, Grandma," have since echoed across the comment sections like scripture. One viewer wrote, "That line broke me. It's not about a sandwich shop. It's about any dream we start to neglect. Water it. Show up." Another added, "This wasn't a comeback story. It was a reminder that maintenance matters, on culture, on people, on the quiet promises we make to ourselves." Marcus didn't save Rose's Grill in a day. What he did was something rarer. He stayed, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, consistently, and that, more than any staff meeting or stern word, restored the roots. The comments poured in from people who'd lost their way. "I stopped showing up to the thing I built," one user admitted. Another confessed, "I used to manage a small team. This story reminded me how fast rot sets in when no one's watching." But it wasn't all regret. Many felt empowered, inspired, seen. "You don't have to shout to lead," someone posted. "You just have to care, and keep caring." The story of Rose's Grill became more than fiction. It became a mirror, a workplace, a family, a side hustle, a promise. Whatever each viewer was quietly building in their own lives, Marcus's journey reminded them it wasn't too late to return, to fix, to re-water the roots. Because as Marcus knew, and Ellie always said, doesn't matter how good the seeds are if you forget to water the garden. He'd planted something real, and now he was choosing to tend it, day by day, not for applause, but for the people who walked through that door needing a place that still believed in second chances. And for the thousands watching, that wasn't just good storytelling, that was a sermon. A name on a sign doesn't mean much, unless the people inside carry what it stands for. Long after the last table was cleared, and the doors of Rose's Grill locked for the night, Marcus Bennett remained in the car park. One arm propped against the brick wall, the other folded across his chest, he stared up at the old green and yellow sign with its flickering E. Years ago, that glow had lit up dreams. But dreams fade when no one protects them, and that's the real story behind Rose's Grill. Not just a restaurant reclaimed, but a reminder that what you build is only as strong as those who choose to believe in it with you. Inside, the diner was clean. But more importantly, it was honest. The culture wasn't fixed, but it was breathing again. Employees weren't perfect, but they were present. Customers didn't just eat. They lingered, shared smiles, and recognized something rare. A place that had found its soul again. And in the comment section, people didn't just see Marcus as a business owner, they saw him as a mirror. "We're still watering, Grandma." That single whisper, spoken to a photo pinned above the prep table, became the heartbeat of the entire story. Dozens of viewers quoted it. One wrote, "That line, I felt it in my chest. It's not about food. It's about legacy. It's about showing up, especially when it's easier to walk away." Another added, "He didn't rebuild walls. He rebuilt trust." That final chapter resonated because it didn't tie things up in a bow. It reminded people that leadership isn't a title. It's a commitment. And culture, it's not one big decision. It's 1,000 small ones. Showing up, listening, admitting when you got it wrong, and letting others do the same. Many shared their own experiences. Bosses who disappeared, workplaces that lost their why, teams that fell apart from silence, not scandal. "This story isn't about a grill," someone wrote. "It's about how easy it is to forget what you started, and how brave it is to walk back in and fight for it again." For Marcus, staying wasn't about heroics. It was about accountability and forgiveness for his staff, for himself, even the way he handled departures, giving Marina a way out without shame, allowing Kendall a second chance without false praise, spoke volumes. He didn't just hold people to a higher standard. He reminded them why it mattered. That's why viewers kept watching, not for the drama, but for the quiet revolution. He didn't scream. He didn't shame. He showed up, one viewer said. And sometimes, that's the loudest kind of leadership there is. In the end, Rose's Grill wasn't just restored. It was redefined. Not by its decor, not by its menu, but by the people who walked in broken and chose to stay, to grow, and to make space for others to do the same. Because as Marcus knew, and as Ellie taught him, it's not the name above the door that makes something matter. It's the people who carry its spirit every day. When they asked for silence, she gave them truth. After days of simmering outrage across social media, Danielle Harper finally received an email from the management of Juniper and Ash. It was short, formal, and cold, a legal request for a conversation to ensure both sides are heard. But Danielle had heard enough. They didn't want to apologize. They wanted quiet. They wanted the noise to stop. But something had shifted inside Danielle. She wasn't just the girl in the black apron anymore. She was the woman whose story had sparked a movement. So she walked into that meeting. Not in fear, not in fury, but in full clarity. No fancy outfit, no legal team, just her and her truth. "I'll take your apology," she said, "but only if it's public, no NDA, and you admit I was let go for speaking my language to my grandmother. That's the deal." Viewers didn't just support her, they celebrated her. One top comment read, "She didn't raise her voice, she raised the standard." Another said, "This wasn't revenge, it was repair. She didn't ask for more than what she deserved, dignity." The restaurant caved. Danielle's terms were met. A public apology was posted on every platform. It acknowledged that the firing of Danielle Harper did not reflect the restaurant's values of diversity and respect. It admitted that language, especially when rooted in family, should never be a reason for dismissal. And just like that, the story stopped being about a single phone call. It became about every person who had ever been told their language was too foreign, their culture too inconvenient, their identity too much. Danielle didn't gloat. She didn't post selfies or hashtags. She simply returned home, called her grandmother, and for the first time in days, let herself breathe. This moment struck a chord with thousands. "She didn't just win a battle," one user wrote. "She reminded us what self-respect looks like." Others were more emotional. I teared up when she said, "You don't need to pretend you respect me. Just hand me the paperwork." That line, that's years of holding it in. And the truth is, they were right. Danielle's story wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was something far more dangerous. A quiet woman refusing to be erased. And that, as one viewer put it, is the most powerful thing you can do. Just exist, loudly, in your own truth. Danielle never returned to restaurant work, not because she wasn't capable, but because she refused to shrink herself just to make others comfortable. Instead, she enrolled in a part-time culinary course, launched a blog about food and identity, and began writing openly about what it means to be Black, multilingual, and misunderstood. Her quiet reflections on culture, belonging, and voice resonated with thousands. Now she calls her grandmother in Mandarin, out loud, in broad daylight, on speakerphone. If anyone is uncomfortable, that's on them, not her. Life lesson. You don't need permission to be who you are. Your language, your culture, your skin. These are not liabilities. They're proof of your strength. Like Danielle showed us, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply speak, clearly, proudly, in your own voice. Silence won't protect you. It only leaves space for others to erase you quietly. But your story, your truth, your sound, they matter. Say them. Share them. Let the world hear you. Call to action. If Danielle's story moved you, tell us how. Drop a comment below. We want to hear your voice. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that make your heart speak up. Together, let's keep amplifying voices that deserve to be heard.